Pick the memory you trust the most, the clearest one, the one you'd swear in court you have exactly right. Hold it for a second, because I'm going to tell you something about that specific memory that you are not going to like. It is the most rewritten file you own. Here's the thing nobody teaches you about your own head. You believe that when you remember something, you are opening a file and reading it back. A recording plays. You watch it, you close it, untouched. That is not what happens. The moment you call a memory up, the brain pulls it out of long-term storage and puts it back into a soft, editable state. For a few hours, that memory is wet clay again. And then your brain saves it, not the original. A new copy, slightly changed by whatever mood you were in, whatever you've learned since, whatever you wish had happened instead. You think you're remembering, you're resaving, and every save overwrites the original. The name for this is reconsolidation, and it took neuroscience almost a century to admit it was real because it breaks a rule the field had treated as a law. By the end of this, you'll know the exact experiment that proved it, why your most treasured memories are in the most danger, why an eyewitness can be completely certain and completely wrong, and there is a window I'll get to near the end where people in laboratories have started editing memories on purpose. So keep that memory you picked in the back of your mind. We're coming back for it. Let's go through it carefully. For most of the 20th century, the textbook story was clean. You have an experience. Over the next hours, the brain consolidates it, meaning it converts a fragile short-term trace into a stable long-term one by building new proteins at the synapse. Once that's done, the memory is fixed. Permanent hardware. You could read it as many times as you liked and it would never change, the way replaying a song doesn't wear a groove into the file. In the year 2000, 3 researchers at New York University put that idea on a table and broke it. Kareem Nader, Glenn Schafe, and Joseph LeDoux published a paper in Nature with a title that sounds dry until you understand what it claims. Fear memories require protein synthesis in the amygdala for reconsolidation after retrieval. Here's what they actually did. They taught rats to fear a tone by pairing it with a mild shock, the standard way you build a fear memory in a lab. They waited a full day, long enough for that memory to fully consolidate. Locked in, hardware. Then they did one of 2 things. To one group, they did nothing to remind the animal of the memory, and they infused a drug into the amygdala that blocks the building of new proteins. The memory survived completely. Of course it did. It was already consolidated, there was nothing being built, so there was nothing to block. To the second group, they first played the tone. Just the tone, a reminder. They reactivated the memory, and then, into that same window, they infused the same protein-blocking drug. And the fear memory fell apart. The animals stopped being afraid of the tone, as if they'd never learned it. Sit with the difference, because it's the whole video. The drug only erased the memory when the memory had first been remembered. An untouched memory was bulletproof. A remembered memory was suddenly fragile enough to destroy. The act of recall had pulled a stable, consolidated memory back into a state where it had to be rebuilt from proteins all over again. And if you interrupted the rebuild, the memory didn't go back to storage. It vanished. That was the proof. Remembering is not reading. Remembering reopens the file for editing, and the brain has to resave it afterward, molecule by molecule, or it's gone. They called the resaving reconsolidation. What makes this almost embarrassing for the field is that the warning had been sitting in the literature since 1968, and everyone had decided to look the other way. That year, James Misanin, Ralph Miller, and Donald Lewis published a short paper in Science. They took rats with a fully consolidated fear memory, well past the point where anyone believed it could be touched, and they gave them an electroconvulsive shock, the kind of jolt known to wipe out memories that are still fresh and consolidating. On an old, settled memory, that shock should have done nothing. It did nothing in the group that wasn't reminded first, but in the group that got a brief reminder cue before the shock, the old memory was wiped out as thoroughly as if it had been brand new. A reactivated old memory behaved exactly like a fragile young one. That result said, in 1968, the loud part quietly. A consolidated memory, once recalled, becomes vulnerable again. It was a direct contradiction of the idea that memories harden once and stay hard. And the field, which was deeply invested in clean one-time consolidation, mostly filed it under anomaly and moved on. The story most people prefer is that science follows the evidence wherever it leads. The truer story is that science protects its laws, and an inconvenient result that threatens a beloved law can sit ignored in a top journal for a generation. This one did. The tools to explain it didn't exist yet, and without a mechanism, an anomaly is easy to wave away as a quirk of the procedure. So it waited. It took Nader's generation, 32 years later, to pick the thread back up with the molecular tools to prove the mechanism. Karim Nader and Oliver Hart later argued in a 2009 review in Nature Reviews Neuroscience that reconsolidation isn't some exotic edge case. It's the rule. Every time a memory is genuinely retrieved, it has to be restabilized by the same kind of protein-building process that fixed it in the first place. Memory was never a recording on a shelf. It was always a draft being re-saved. Now, you might be telling yourself a comforting thing right now. That's rats. That's amygdala fear conditioning. That's a tone and a shock, not the memory of your wedding or your grandfather's voice. Let me close that exit. In 2007, Almut Hupbach and Lynn Nader, with their colleagues, ran a version of this on human episodic memory, the autobiographical kind, in the journal Learning and Memory. They had people learn a set of objects on day 1. Then on day 2, they brought everyone back to learn a second, different set of objects. But for half the group, they gave a tiny reminder of day 1 first. Just a nudge. The same room. A question about the first session. Nothing more. Then on day 3, they asked everyone to recall only the first set of objects. The people who'd gotten no reminder recalled the first list cleanly. But the people who'd been reminded before learning the second list did something strange. They smeared the two together. They confidently recalled objects from the second list as having been part of the first. The reminder had reopened the original memory, and the new information leaked in and got saved as if it had always belonged there. Now, I'll be honest with you, because this audience checks. Some researchers argue Hupbach's result is source confusion rather than the exact molecular reconsolidation Nader found in rats, and that debate is genuinely open. But the behavioral fact is not in dispute. Reminding you of a memory right before you encounter new information lets that new information rewrite the old memory. And then there's the cleanest version of the whole idea. In 2012, Donna Bridge and Ken Paller at Northwestern had people learn where objects sat on a screen, then recall those positions again and again across days while recording their brain activity. Here's what they found. Every time a person retrieved an object's location, the next time they recalled it, it had drifted toward wherever they'd mistakenly placed it the time before. The error compounded. Each recall didn't refresh the true memory. It saved over it with the slightly wrong version, and the slightly wrong version became the new truth to drift from. The press release at the time called it the telephone game, and that's exactly right. You are playing telephone with yourself, and you are the only player. If your memory rewrites itself every time you use it, then the place this should terrify you is the courtroom. Because the whole legal system runs on a sentence that turns out to be nonsense. I'll never forget that face. You will. You already have. You just don't know it. The groundwork here is older than the neuroscience. Back in 1932, the Cambridge psychologist Frederick Bartlett did something simple and devastating. He had British participants read a strange Native American folktale called The War of the Ghosts, full of details that didn't fit their cultural expectations, and then recall it again and again over days and weeks. Every retelling, the story changed. The unfamiliar parts got dropped or rationalized. The spooky, supernatural bits became ordinary. The whole thing slowly bent itself into the shape of a story that made sense to the person telling it. Bartlett's conclusion was that memory is not reproductive. It is reconstructive. You don't replay the past. You rebuild it every time, using your expectations as the scaffold. 40 years later, Elizabeth Loftus made it concrete and made it dangerous. In 1974, she and John Palmer showed people a film of a car accident, then asked how fast the cars were going. But she changed one word between groups. For some, the cars hit each other. For others, they smashed into each other. The people who heard smashed gave higher speed estimates. And a week later, when she asked whether they'd seen any broken glass in the film, the smashed group was far more likely to say yes. There was no broken glass. A single verb, dropped in after the fact, had reached back into the memory and added something that was never there. Then, in 1995, Loftus went all the way. With Jacqueline Pickrell, she didn't distort a real memory. She implanted a fake one. They gave subjects short accounts of childhood events from a family member, 3 true and 1 completely fabricated. A story about being lost in a shopping mall as a small child. After being gently asked to remember it a few times, about a quarter of the subjects came to remember the mall in vivid detail. The fear, the kind stranger who found them. None of it happened. The memory was every bit as felt, as confident, as real to them as the true ones. Loftus had shown that you can write a memory into a person that was never an experience at all, just by asking them to remember it. Reconsolidation is the mechanism underneath all of it. Every time the witness rehearses the event with a leading question, with a lawyer's framing, with their own dread, they reopen the file and save a new version. By the time they're certain, what they're certain of is the final draft, not the night it happened. Confidence isn't a measure of accuracy. It's a measure of how many times you've resaved. Step back, because the obvious question is screaming. Why would evolution build a memory system that corrupts its own records every time you use them? That sounds like a catastrophic design flaw. It isn't. It's the opposite. It's the feature. Think about what memory is actually for. It is not for nostalgia. It is not a museum. It is a tool for predicting the future and surviving it. And a tool that predicts the future has to stay current. The world changes. The safe path floods. The trusted friend betrays you. The food that nourished you once makes you sick. A memory system that locked in version 1 and never updated would be a beautifully accurate archive of a world that no longer exists. So the brain made a trade. It gave up perfect fidelity to the past in exchange for the ability to keep its model of the world up to date. Reconsolidation is the editing window where new information gets folded into old knowledge. When you recall something and reality has moved on, the labile state lets the memory absorb the correction and resave as something more useful. That's why Hupbach's subjects merged the 2 lists. The system was doing its job. It assumed the new objects were an update to the old situation and integrated them. There's a deeper reason this design wins, too. Storing a perfect frozen copy of every experience would be ruinously expensive, and worse, it would be brittle. A brain stuffed with rigid, unrevisable records would contradict itself constantly, because the world keeps teaching you that what you believed yesterday was incomplete. By keeping memories soft enough to update on contact with new information, the brain stays internally consistent. It quietly reconciles the old with the new every time you remember, so that your sense of the past always lines up with what you currently understand to be true. That feels like wisdom. It is partly fabrication. The seamless, sensible life story you can recite is seamless precisely because the seams were edited out, one retrieval at a time. The cost is exactly what we've been describing. The same window that keeps your memories useful is the window through which they get quietly falsified. You cannot have one without the other. An organism that can learn from being wrong is an organism whose memories can be rewritten, because learning from being wrong literally means overwriting the old record. The flaw and the genius are the same machine. We are not built to remember accurately. We are built to remember usefully, and the brain will sacrifice accuracy for usefulness without ever telling you it made the trade. Now I'm coming back for the memory you picked at the start, the one you trust the most. Here is the cruel arithmetic. Reconsolidation only happens to memories you actually retrieve. A memory you never think about sits in storage, untouched, never reopened, never resaved. It decays slowly, but it doesn't get edited, because editing requires opening the file. The memories that get rewritten are the ones you visit. So ask yourself which memories you visit the most. It's the cherished ones. The first time you saw the person you love, the sound of a parent who's gone, the proudest day, the worst day, the memories that define who you think you are. Those are the ones you replay constantly, at every anniversary, every time you tell the story at a dinner, every time the grief or the joy surfaces unbidden at 2 a.m. Every one of those replays is a reopening. Every reopening is a resave. Every resave is a small edit, which means the memory you hold most precious is, mathematically, your most corrupted file. You have rewritten it 1,000 times, a little warmer here, a little sharper there, the lighting improved, the dialogue tightened, the version you wish it had been slowly replacing the version it was. Your most cherished memory is your most edited file. You rewrote it every single time you loved it. And the strange flip side, a memory you never touch stays truer than a memory you treasure. The forgotten ordinary Tuesday, if you could somehow retrieve it raw, would be closer to what actually happened than the wedding you've replayed for 30 years. The past you have access to is the part you've handled the least. What's been emptied out of you is the real version of the moments that mattered most. You traded it away, draft by draft, in the act of holding them close. It told you at the start there was a window, and that people had started editing memories on purpose. This is where it pays off, and it's not a horror story. It might be one of the most hopeful things in clinical neuroscience right now. If a memory becomes editable for a few hours after you recall it, then a memory that ruined someone's life, a trauma, a phobia, the wired-in dread of a soldier or an assault survivor, becomes editable too. You just have to get into the window on purpose. In 2010, Daniela Schiller, working with Schafe LeDoux and Elizabeth Phelps, published exactly this in Nature. They built a fear memory in human volunteers, the harmless lab kind, then waited a day. Then they gave a brief reminder of the fear, just enough to crack the file open and start the reconsolidation window. And then, inside that window, they ran ordinary extinction training, the standard procedure where you show the feared thing over and over with nothing bad happening, until the fear fades. No drugs at all. The result was the part that matters. Normally, extinction is fragile. The fear comes creeping back days later, or the moment you're stressed, because extinction doesn't erase the old memory, it just lays a flimsy new one on top. But when they ran that same extinction inside the reconsolidation window, the fear didn't come back. Not the next day, not under stress, not a year later in the follow-up. They hadn't covered the fear memory. They had reached into it while it was soft and rewritten it. So the new safe information got saved as the memory itself. That is the whole story turned into a tool. The same labile window that lets a leading question falsify an eyewitness, that lets your grief slowly sweeten a memory, is the window a clinician can step into deliberately to disarm a memory that's hurting someone. The mechanism doesn't care whether it's corrupting your past or healing it. It just opens the file and saves whatever's in the room. So go back, one last time, to the memory you trust the most. You were never reading it. You were always writing it every time you looked. It isn't a recording of what happened. It's the latest draft by an author who loves you too much to keep it accurate. That's not a malfunction. It's the deal your brain made so you could keep up with a world that won't hold still. The past you carry isn't the past. It's the version of the past that helps you live now, resaved one more time the instant you went looking for it. The hard part isn't remembering. The hard part is knowing that the thing you're so sure of was edited by the one person you'd never suspect. You. If you want the next investigation when it lands, subscribe. It'll find you.